really such a blessing to be here. The energy has been amazing. I have done many Lincoln dinners, and I can tell you this one has been the most energetic, the most outstanding, and the most well-organized. So, a round of applause. I know how much work so many of you guys put into making this happen, and I'm extremely grateful to all of you. A couple of weeks ago, I made a really bad decision, and I Googled myself, and it was pretty horrific stuff that came up, to be honest with you. And then, you know, when you're making bad decisions, you might as well go ahead and make worse ones. So then I made an even worse decision to hit my Wikipedia. Like, it's really, really bad. Honestly, they might as well have it as Candace Owens' spawn of Hitler. It's that bad. Terrible, terrible things that are said about me. And really, if you Google the name of any Black conservative, you'll pretty much see the same thing, the amount of media hits that we take. But I've learned to laugh because, you know, Wikipedia may have some bad things about me, but Hillary Clinton is still not their president. So, in a way, I wake up every day and I feel like we've won, at least in that regard, and we have to keep fighting. I do want to tell you guys a little bit about myself, some of the truth, not some of the horrific things that you've read about me. I am not, in fact, anti-Black, anti-LGBT. I am not a Nazi sympathizer, and believe it or not, I am not a white supremacist. The truth, of course, is of no interest to the public. I was born and raised in Stamford, Connecticut. My family was impoverished. I grew up in a very small apartment. I started my life in a very small apartment with my brothers and my sisters, all cramped into one room. We had cockroaches, and the exterminator would come and help clear things out. And of course, that narrative does not plug into what the left would like to get out about me, because they need to make me seem as if I was born and raised as a rich girl in Connecticut, when in fact my story is anything but that. I was born in 1989, and I always like to tell people, I think I was always a defiant person. I always defied expectations. My mom had 2 ultrasounds, and I guess in '89 the ultrasounds weren't that great because they told her that she was having a little boy. And my dad was really excited because it was going to be his first son, so I was going to be Robert Owens III. And they went out and purchased all the clothes, and my nursery and everything that was bought for me at her baby shower was for boy clothing. And then of course, aha, got you guys defied. I was a girl, much to my dad's chagrin. He was very upset about that, but now I'm his little girl. And the second thing is I was born with a blocked tear duct. So for the first couple of weeks of my life, I was actually unable to produce any tears. Earliest indication that I was not going to be a liberal, if you take a look back at it. But my parents always tell me the stories of what a difficult child I was to rear, because I was always asking the question why. My sisters and my brother, they just got right in line. My mom would say to do something, and I would say why, and she would come back at me and say, because I told you so. And I would get very frustrated with this, and there are so many home videos of me and her just trying to use, you know, simple parent strategy and say, you know, if you don't clean your room, then Santa's not going to come. And there's videos of me turning around saying, then tell him not to come. And I had that energy, this really bold energy when I was a kid, because, and I look back at it and I think it was because I didn't like arbitrary authority. Just because I said so was the thing my mom always said, because I said so. And that never really seemed to me like a very good reason to do anything. So my parents lucked out because eventually I was sent to school and I became somebody else's problem, I guess, at least for 7 hours a day. And I think about that now, I think, why is it that parents send their children to school? You know, the nice answer you'd like to say is because we want our children to become educated. We want kids to get educated. But I don't think that's the truth. I think we send them to school namely for 2 reasons. The first reason is because society puts the pressure on that you sort of have to. I mean, what are you going to do? A 5-year-old and a 6-year-old is not in school. You're going to be looking at the parents like they have 10 heads. And the second reason is because parents have to work. And the government comes and they say, we'll pay for your kid to come to this school and learn things, and you get to go to work and you get off. So of course parents send their children to school. I more or less had the exact same attitude all throughout school. I got very good grades, but the teachers absolutely hated me. I was a disaster of a child because I did not respond well to arbitrary authority. And believe it or not, what is happening in our school systems today is arbitrary authority. They're no longer teaching children how to think. They are teaching children how to remember, and there is a difference. Children are being indoctrinated in school, and when teachers would try this on me, I remember specifically, I had a teacher named Mr. White. Mr. White, if you ever watch this, go to some YouTube, I am so sorry, he's such a lovely man, really. And he had me in class, and just the same exact tactics that teachers use, and one moment in particular was a test that we had on World War II. And I speak to Mr. White today, and he says, Candace, if there was going to be one girl that shook things up, it was definitely going to be you. And the question on the test was very easy. It said, why did America have to drop the bomb on Hiroshima? Fair question. But I didn't like that the answer was already written inside of the question. You know, if you wanted a student to think, the question would be worded, did America have to drop the bomb on Hiroshima? That slight difference is such an important difference in understanding how schools operate. That we are told the answers before we're challenged to think, and thinking critically has always been the business that I was in. So of course I went up to him and I handed him the test and I said, I don't like the way this question is worded. And he said, Jesus, Candace, could you just answer the test? And then of course Mr. White got lucky and I got sent off to college. This is how they just keep passing me along. And I had no idea why I was going to college. I look back on that and I think, why on earth did I go to college? I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I was willing to take out over $100,000 in student loan, which obviously for me, coming from a family that couldn't afford to put me through school, amounted to $150,000 in student loan debt for me. And I didn't even know what I wanted to do. So I picked a random major, and quite ironically, I picked journalism, which is funny, of course, now considering that I spend most of my time yelling about how terrible journalism is and how much fake news there is in the world. And for those of you, I'm sure most of you have gone to college, when they send you, even though you're paying to go there, they still tell you that there are courses that you have to take, your gen ed. So they're picking the classes. A couple of decades ago, those classes might have been things like, I don't know, Western civilization, you know, learning why America is the greatest country in the world, teaching students to honor this country, but there's been a massive, massive shift. Now these classes that you're forced to take, which have absolutely nothing to do with your major, are things like gender studies. I was forced to take Feminism 101. Fine for me, terrible for my teacher. There's nothing I hate more than feminism. And of course, this is before I considered politics, before I considered myself a conservative. If you had asked me throughout my entire life if I was a liberal, I would have told you yes, I would have told you I was a Democrat, of course, because I'm black and I have to be a Democrat. That's what I learned in school, right? You go to school not to get educated, to get miseducated, so that they can plug you right into their system. So this Feminism 101 class, which I was forced to attend and didn't want to be at, and I would sit in the back of my class with my sunglasses on and my iced coffee, thought I was so cool, and I looked around the class and they looked like a lot of feminists around me, I'll tell you that much. I think I was the only person who did not elect to take that class. And I remember this particular course, and I'll tell you how the class went. Insert a problem, any problem, and it could be, you know, why do women suffer? The answer was man. Plug in, the answer was always going to be men. Candace, why did you get a ticket yesterday? If I said because men, I would have gotten an A. Every answer was, why is something bad? And the question was, why is something bad? And the answer was because of men. We were being taught in class to hate men, to believe that they were our oppressors. This was not something that I accepted. So in this particular class, we were learning about the statistics surrounding eating disorders. And of course, she asked the question to the class. Why is it that 89% of the people that suffer from anorexia in this country are women? And then of course a big feminist raised her hand and she was very excited and she said, because men make us feel like we have to be skinny. And I said, I literally laughed out loud. And she turned around to me and she said, Candace, would you like to add something? And I said, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Men tell us we have to be skinny, really? Growing up in school, we know how girls are. Girls can be vicious to one another. Every time I was ever called fat in school, I was called fat by a girl. I've never heard a man call a woman fat, to be quite honest with you. And I offered that to her, and then she said to me, how can you ignore these stats? It says 89% of them are women, why aren't they men? Well, I said, then why don't we look at the stats of how many people take steroids illegally? I bet the answer to that would be the majority of them are men. Does that mean we're oppressing men? Are we making them feel like they have to be bigger? And then I hit her with the home run, and as we bickered back and forth, and I said to her, you know what? I actually currently, because in college I did, have anorexia. It has absolutely nothing to do with the man. I suffered from anorexia for 3 years of my life, and in this class, I currently had an eating disorder. And then the room went silent. And I think to me, that was the earliest example for me of the difference between liberalism and conservatism. If I was able to connect the dots politically, I would have realized in that moment that I was a conservative. I told her the reasons that I had an eating disorder had everything to do with control and nothing to do with men. No man told me not to eat anything, no man called me fat. I literally wanted to control something when I felt that my life was spinning out of control. So I manifested that eating disorder all by myself, nobody put it in my head. An example of conservatism is saying, here's something that I did, and I want to take responsibility and accountability for my actions. An example in that classroom of liberalism, which was being taught, was to blame the world. To look outside and to say, the world did this to me. I didn't do this to myself. The world did this to me. And it's really fascinating, this culture of victimhood that has been burned in this country. I was asking Elena when I was coming downstairs, Elena's my assistant for those of you who haven't met her, I said, why is it that people are so fascinated with being a victim? Really, what is it that makes them gravitate and want them to be victims? And she gave me a very blanket answer. She said, because they're cowards. And she's exactly right. Being a victim is the easy way out in life. Life is hard, you know? Life is tough. When they say wear a helmet through life, you really should. Just when you think that you have things figured out, life hands you a bad hand again, and over again, because life is a series of overcoming. So if someone can turn around to you and say, hey, guess what? You don't have to overcome anything. You can just sit down, say, and do nothing, and blame the world for every fault and every tribulation that you've ever had. That is a really appetizing selection. It's a very easy way out. But you know what? It doesn't produce results. And there's no better example of that truth than the Black community today. The Black community has accepted that the status of victimhood. We've accepted the status of victimhood, which was handed to us and began for us in the 1960s. President Lyndon Baines Johnson, the most racist president ever to be on record, and quite frankly, in all of the school systems, is taught as a heroic president for Black people. Black people, if you ask them today, who was the president who did the most for Black people, they would say it was Lyndon Baines Johnson. This was a man who was forced to sign the Civil Rights Act, and in response to it, and on record calling us the N-word, he referred to it as the N-word bill, said that he had to come up with a way to keep uppity Blacks from feeling too uppity, was the quote, and that he would have us voting Democrat for the next 200 years, and he gave birth to the Great Society Act, and there began the decimation of the Black community. Handouts. Brandy brought up the welfare system. The idea that you're going to help us when in fact you're going to hurt us. So let's see what that has earned for the Black community. Let's see, in the 1960s, the single motherhood rate in the Black community was 23%. Today, the single motherhood rate in the Black community is 74%. How did that happen? Because the welfare programs quite literally incentivize bad behavior. The government will give you more money if the father of your children does not live in the home. They come and they inspect. I know this because I grew up with a family that was on welfare. If the father is not in the home, they say we'll give you more money. The government will give you more money if you have more children out of wedlock. So this is how you see, how is it possible that this family is so poor and yet they have 6, 7, 8 children? Because it's a way for the government to give you more money. Now, the government punishes you for good behavior. So the government says, okay, we'll pay for your house for Section 8. And you say, oh, I got a job and now I can pay for my own house. The government will say, or I can pay a little bit more towards having my own house. The government will take your home away. They'll say, we'll no longer allow you to be that. So people are quite literally trying to stay under the government's radar. They're trying to stay beneath it, and this is what has crippled the Black community. Of course, I didn't learn any of this in school. In fact, I credit part of this with the fact that I dropped out of school in my senior year. My loan got declined, and I obviously couldn't afford to stay in school, and I was forced to leave school, the $150,000 in student loan debt and no degree, and I was forced to figure it out. So I was either going to be a victim, or I was going to be a victor. I was convinced that I was a liberal, I was convinced that I was a Democrat, but nothing that I was doing was indicating either of those things. I worked very hard to get my head above water, started working in finance, worked there for about 4.5 years and significantly paid down my loans. And then something amazing happened. Donald Trump came down the escalator. And I think this really was, right? Let's give him a round of applause. Right? Donald Trump coming down the escalator was the single most significant moment in terms of a turning point for America. A turning point for the world, really, but most importantly for America, and specifically for Black America, because we were all forced to suddenly pay attention to politics. I always say, and I remark that, if I went around and you showed me a Black person, I would say that person is a conservative and doesn't know it. We are all conservatives and just don't know it because we've been existing under this simulation. But because of Donald Trump, and thanks to Donald Trump, I was able to realize that. He came down and I said to myself, oh God, no, he cannot be the President of the United States. That was the first thing I thought. I said, this would be crazy. He's a reality star, you know? But what I didn't think was that he was a racist, that he was a sexist, that he was a misogynist, that he was a rapist. At one point, I think they pegged him as incestuous, and they were saying that he had feelings for Ivanka. And I said, now, this is crazy. I grew up in a household listening to hip hop, and believe it or not, they loved Donald Trump. Every rapper and artist in the Black community would be rapping about how they were sipping poolside at Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump was a symbol of status. That was what was coming through my ears as I was listening to this music. And then all of a sudden, just like that, they wanted me to believe that this man was a racist. So at that moment that I paused and I asked myself, is it possible that racism is now being used as a theme to turn Black people into single-issue voters? And of course, the answer is yes. And then I said, well, somebody's got to do something about it. And it turned out that somebody was me. With just a little bit of savings and my loan significantly paid down, I had this brilliant idea that I was going to quit my very well-paying job in finance and I was going to launch a YouTube channel. Do we get silent on this or no? Okay, no worries. No worries, don't worry about it. So I launched my first video and it was called Mom, Dad, I'm a Conservative. How many people in the room have seen it? Great. For those of you that haven't, go binge watch my YouTube series. And I named my series The Myth of the Coon because I thought to myself, whenever a Black person begins to get the idea and starts to better understand their history, the myth is what they sell you. This person is a coon, this person is an Uncle Tom, this person is a race trader, all the things that I now Google about myself. So I put it right into their face and named the series Myth of the Coon. The first video I did was a satirical stab called Mom, Dad, I'm a Conservative. And it was called Coming Out in 2017. And I was likening coming out, the experience of coming out as a Black conservative is like coming out as gay in the 80s, I would imagine. The way that you are viewed, the attacks that people come after you, that is quite literally what it was like to acknowledge the fact that I was a conservative. And I didn't think much of it. The video got, maybe 100,000 views, and I thought, wow, this is great. I'm really onto something here. And then something amazing happened, which I couldn't have predicted. I launched a video, and it garnered 26 million views in the span of 48 hours. It was a video, thank you. It was a video, really, of me ranting. I was sitting in a living room and my cousin had on CNN, and it was after the Charlottesville attacks. And CNN was quite literally trying to sell to me, as a Black American, that the KKK was back. Like, this was the fear, this was what they were selling to me. Like, hey, Black person in your living room, like, the KKK is back. They're alive and they're well because you failed to elect Hillary Clinton for the President of the United States. And now they're being emboldened and they're back. So watch out for the guy on horseback wearing a white hood. So I get home from the gym and I see this video and I'm going, what on earth? And I flip open my laptop and I just rant for 4 minutes and I challenge who are watching the video, very passionate challenge, for them to override what they are hearing on their TV screens with experience. When I walk out of my door, I am treated the same as everybody else. Nobody looks at me as a black person. When I go to the gym, there's a white girl working at the counter who hands me a towel. When I go to Starbucks, there might be a Spanish person that hands me my coffee. I am living in a country that is not racist. CNN needs me to believe that I am, and I'll tell you why. It is because if the Democrats get 85% of the black vote, they lose. That is how much of the black vote that they need to sustain their party. The path of least resistance destroying the left, who, by the way, must be defeated. They are trying to cause chaos in this country. Make no mistake, we are fighting a cultural war, and it's a serious one. It is a serious one for America. When they stand up on a platform and they are talking about socialism, and they are trying to make that malleable and edible for people to think that socialism is good, which, by the way, you're not even required to understand history to know that socialism is bad. You're required to understand the present. Go down to Venezuela if you want to see what happens when socialism is implemented perfectly, by the way. Socialism is something that has killed 100 million people in the last 100 years, and they are trying to bring that to America today. That is the war that we are fighting. And the path of least resistance, which I observed, is through the black community. There is no community that deserves to be more pissed off at the left than the black community. So what are we going to do about it? That's the question that I asked myself once these videos exploded and I was being requested to be on Fox News, and I said, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to win this country back? How are we going to get Black America to wake up from this simulation and to understand that we have been lied to, and we have been duped, and we have been used as voting mules for the last 60 years? And I realized that the way that they were able to brainwash me was through 3 very easy verticals. The first vertical is family. They broke down our families. Genius. Gotta give them credit for that. LBJ and the welfare systems. That was a very easy strategy. The #1 issue facing Black Americans today is that our fathers have been removed from the home. We need men. All communities need men. Toxic feminism trying to sell us this idea that we don't need men, that it's easier without men, is purposeful. They're trying to disrupt the things that we need the most. And when a home is put together and family values are taught, that family has a better chance at surviving. That is proven statistically, and that was taught to us by Barack Obama. He was the person that emphasized how important fathers are in the home. He was the person that said, when the father is not at home, you are 20 times more likely to end up in prison, 9 times more likely not to graduate high school. These are real statistics, and this is a crisis that America is facing today. The second vertical that I observed that they disrupted, of course, was culture and the media. It's why people in Hollywood are not allowed to be conservative without losing their jobs. They understood that if we could, instead of making people think about God, what if we could make them think that celebrities were like God? And then poison the celebrities with ideas and tell them that they all have to be liberal and get them to go on their Instagrams and their Twitters and support Hillary Clinton. That is how they were able to do that, and that is exactly the blessing that I received when, after 7 months of me fighting on YouTube, Kanye West tweets, "I love the way Candace Owens thinks." Kanye has been a dear friend and a mentor, and we argue all the time about different ideas. And let me tell you, he is an ally to the conservative movement. And it's not because Kanye West is a conservative. It's because Kanye West believes in free thoughts. And if you believe in free thoughts, you are a conservative. The left knew exactly what happened when Kanye West sent that tweet. I cannot describe to you what we went through in the first 24 hours. I have never been smeared harder, faster, or more viciously than in the 24 hours after Kanye West sent that tweet. They were saying things about me that had my family concerned. They were stalking my family. I was receiving phone calls and text messages and Facebook messages from people from Stanford telling me that reporters were snooping around. And of course, because none of them probably actually listened to Kanye West music growing up, I knew what was going to happen. Which is that the more that he tell Kanye West no, the more that he is going to double down on his approach. And the next day, Kanye West put on the MAGA hat. So here we are. Kanye West is a vocal Trump supporter, which allowed for the first time Black people to consider conservative ideas. For them to say, you know what, if somebody that I idolize and someone that I admire is saying that this is okay, maybe I should just go research the person that they're saying that they love. And that's exactly what happened. Within 1 month, Black support for Donald Trump doubled. That is how significant something like a tweet from a radical artist can be. The last vertical that the left has completely dominated the space in, and which has led to a mass brainwashing, is the education system. Make no mistake, the biggest mistake that conservatives and Republicans made was letting the left run the school systems, letting them completely take over the school systems. I have seen this firsthand. Colleges have morphed into liberal indoctrination camps. Make no mistake that when you send your kid to school, they are being sent to be indoctrinated by liberalism. That is what is happening in the classrooms. And so I signed on with Turning Point USA, as many of you know. And what we do is we table and we visit these college campuses and we challenge these kids. And we're met by Antifa, and we're met by Black Lives Matter, and we're met by, we just were in Hawaii yesterday, and they were threatening to throw frozen poop at us because we are conservative. And we challenge them with ideas, and we stand in front of a sign, and yesterday's sign just said, white privilege is a myth, prove me wrong. And we allow kids to step to the mic and to challenge our ideas, and to challenge our principles, and to challenge our truths, because that's not what they're getting in the classroom. So we bring what should be happening in the classroom, critical thinking and reasoning, to them. We have professors that boycott us, and liberal groups all funded by George Soros, and understand that there is a lot of money under these liberal causes. There is a lot of money backing these liberal causes. George Soros is an evil, evil man. But here's the good news. Here's the good news. When you watch these last couple of weeks and you watch what's happening to Brett Kavanaugh, by the way, a disastrous movement, which I called out early and took hits from both conservatives and liberals when I said that I didn't support the Me Too movement, because the writing was on the wall with that one. The writing was on the wall. When you remove due process and you say that no matter what, you know, why do women even go to court? Apparently we're always right and we never lie, right? When you remove due process, you are just begging for liberals to hijack that and make it theirs. Make no mistake, they have launched wars doing that. Black Lives Matter was a movement that was hijacked by the left and now is funded by the left. It was morphed into a war on police officers. Me Too is now a war on conservative men, when these allegations can fly. But here's what I'll tell you. They're losing. They know they're losing. They wouldn't be acting this way and spiraling out of control if we weren't close. We are very close. And the left has a very, very big problem in me.
Yeah.
In 1 week, I am launching a project that I have worked on since last February, which I'm really excited to share with you guys tonight, to preview with you guys tonight. It is something that I think is going to shake the left to their core. We've gotten thousands and thousands and thousands of Black people across the country writing to me, emailing me, asking where they can hear me speak, where they can attend an event, you know, how they can get involved. They thank me and say, and the number one thing that they say, which is fascinating, is I had never even heard this perspective. I mean, that really tells you how locked down the left has the simulation and everything that they are hearing. They've never even heard a conservative idea. And so I said, what are we going to do with this? There's a movement happening. I open my computer and every day I see more and more Black YouTubers popping up saying, I'm free, I'm off the Democrats' plantation, because it is a plantation, believe it or not. Slavery has shifted. All at once it was something they enslaved our bodies. Now they're enslaving black minds, and the chains are coming off. And I said, what are we going to do with this? And then it dawned on me. I'm going to launch Blexit, the black exit from the Democrat Party. Blexit has been a labor of love. It has been something that gets me up in the morning. It is the reason that I have not slept. I will tell you, it is the most beautiful website, Blexit.com. There will be Blexit rallies in every major city that the left has run into the ground. Philadelphia, Detroit, Chicago, all of them, where blacks were once flourishing, that have allowed Democrats to take it over and run them into the ground. Blexit will bring speakers to these kids that are excited and want to hear different ideas. Speakers from their community that understand what's happening and will speak directly to them. Blexit is a fund to help get those kids to those ideas, because, make no mistake, impoverishing our communities was half the battle. Most of the kids can't afford to attend a conference. Most of the kids have never been on a plane. My first cousins have never been on a plane. What that means is that they have not had access to new ideas. And Blexit is going to give them just that. So, if the left thought that my Wikipedia page, calling me anti-black, anti-LGBT, a Nazi sympathizer, anti-everything apparently, was going to do anything but inspire me to be the loudest voice for Black America, and in turn for America, because the greatest untapped resource in this country is the Black community. The Black community can single-handedly save this country from socialism if we just inspire and awaken you. So allow them to focus on Brett Kavanaugh, because he's going to get confirmed no matter what. And by the way, when he does get confirmed, he's going to be right of Clarence Thomas. He's going to be the most conservative person sitting up there, because he has seen firsthand, up close and personal, how ugly and evil and disgusting the left has become. There is no, really, right? There is no barrel of ugly that they are not willing to examine and open. And what we are going to do is we are going to bring America together. We are going to bring communities together that have never been brought together. We are going to bring conservative principles to the communities that need them the most. We are going to remind minorities that they can think outside of their skin tone, that they should think in general. I have been blessed with the support of every person in this room. I have been blessed with Donald Trump coming down the escalator. I have been blessed with a lot of energy and a great assistant. And I am just so grateful to all of you for inviting me here tonight, and I promise you that this is just the beginning. Thank you so much for having me.